like to call to order the City of Belton Planning Commission meeting. This is October 3rd, 2022, and we will give the secretary a moment to get in. Thank you. Appreciate all that are here this evening. We do have, just in the way of announcements, we do have a public hearing this evening concerning rezoning. And so we have a number here to speak around that issue, and so appreciate you all coming out this evening. So as we call the meeting to order, could we have the roll call, please?
Chairman McPherson.
Here.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember Pryan.
Here.
Commissioner McDonough.
Here.
Commissioner Monahan Bass.
Here.
Commissioner Vest.
Here.
Commissioner Christie.
Here.
Commissioner Walton. And Commissioner Warren.
Here.
Thank you. First item we have this evening would be the approval of the minutes from our September 19th Planning Commission session. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from September 19th as presented.
Thank you, Mayor.
Second.
And Councilman, thank you for the second. Are there any corrections, additions that need to be made to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving as submitted to us, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, that motion did carry. Thank you very much. The first item that we have this evening is the public hearing. It is for the consideration of a rezoning from C2 PUD, General Commercial Planned Unit Development, to an R3 PUD, Multifamily Planned Unit Development, and a preliminary development plan for Tradition's 7th plat, a six building, 12-unit duplex development on the southeast corner of South Mullen Road and Sycamore Drive. And we will call public hearing to session. And Director, I ask you to speak for us.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Before you this evening is a request for a rezoning and a preliminary development plan for a 1.48 acre parcel, which is located at the southeast corner of South Mullen Road and Sycamore Drive, which is known as Tradition's 7th plat. The applicant, Salee Holmes, is requesting to rezone the property from C2 PUD, which is General Commercial Plan Unit Development, to R3 PUD, Multifamily Plan Unit Development, and is requesting to approve a preliminary development plan for the development of 6 duplexes on the property with shared site improvements. A couple of items to note is that the legal description covers 1.48 acres, but the actual parcel size is 1.13 acres after the right-of-way dedication for the Mullen Road expansion. And then the R3 zoning is consistent with the remainder of the Traditions PUD, which is all zoned R3 regardless of housing type or density. The preliminary development plan is on the screen and does meet the R3 site design standards with the exception of the front setback. The applicant is requesting to reduce the front setback from 30 feet to 20 feet adjacent to Sycamore Drive and 30 feet to 25 feet adjacent to South Mullen Road. This setback better accommodates the building style with front porches and rear access garages and parking. This setback is also consistent with the 20-foot front setbacks approved for the Traditions fourplexes. All other development standards have been met, including building coverage and green space requirements. Vehicle access is provided by one point of access from Sycamore Drive, which will function similar to an alley that will access the rear of the buildings. Each unit will have a single car garage, and most units will have an additional driveway between the garage and the between the parking. The 2 westernmost buildings do not have sufficient depth for a driveway space in front of the garage. Therefore, those depths have been reduced to make it clear that those are not parking spaces. 7 additional parking spaces have been provided along the south side of the access drive to accommodate residents and visitors as needed. The site has 27 off-street parking spaces, which is exceeding the 24 spaces required by code. As the access drive functions like an alley rather than a traditional parking lot, staff believes that the 20-foot access width is appropriate and meets the minimum fire code requirement for access. The plan includes 6 two-story flat-over-flat duplexes, which has 1 unit on the ground floor and a second unit on the upper floor. The building design is oriented towards Sycamore Drive with covered front porches on both levels with sidewalk connections from each building to the street. Exterior building materials include wood siding with masonry wainscoting on the front elevations with vertical lap siding on the side and rear facades. The conceptual renderings, which are on the screen, include a mix of siding colors. The applicant has provided designated areas for each building to store trash containers, which are shown here on the back of the renderings, or on the back side of the buildings in the renderings, which will be screened with fencing. Designated pads for the trash containers have also been provided along the access drive for pickup. Conceptual landscape plan has been provided, which provides an acceptable amount and mix of trees and shrubs throughout the site, with evergreen screening provided along the south and east property lines adjacent to single-family homes. Detention and water quality requirements for this site were addressed in previous phases of the traditions, and the site has adequate utilities to serve this development. Staff reviewed the rezoning under the applicable reviewed criteria in UDC section 20-3 and finds that the request is compatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood, which includes a mix of residential housing types. This rezoning follows a trend of downzoning commercial properties to residential along the South Mullen Road corridor due to limited commercial development interest. This is the last remaining undeveloped parcel in the traditions and the last parcel that has not been rezoned to residential from commercial. The preliminary development plan provides for a more pedestrian-oriented site design that pushes the buildings closer to the street with covered porches while placing and screening parking in the rear of the site. A development maintenance agreement will be required to be approved with the final development plan and final plat for the property. As noted in the staff report, a final landscape plan must be submitted with the final development plan and landscaping must be irrigated. As this property is zoned R3, a full irrigation system is not required. However, some type of irrigation will be needed to ensure that landscaping, especially the evergreens for screening, remain in good health. And that concludes staff's presentation.
All right, thank you, Director. And the developer is here with a presentation, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. If you would come to the microphone, just give us your name and,
Do I need to be sworn in too?
no,
Okay.
you're fine.
Tyler Salee with Salee Homes, P.O. Box 6437, Lee Summit, Missouri 64064. We're the owners and developers of the Traditions community. We've been out developing in this neighborhood. I think this is going to be our 5th year now. So we went through this process, similar process a couple years ago, just across the street on the north side of Sycamore Drive when we did the senior villas. You can kind of see on this picture here, there's a north-south boundary there, which is from a previous plat that shows, there was a commercial zoning along Mullen Road where the senior villas are now. And we ended up combining that with the other residential piece back behind there and developed the 89 senior villas that are there now. Back to the east of that is the townhome development, and then south of Sycamore is where all the single-family residential development's happening now. So we teamed up with Elevate Design. Sean Flannery's here, along with Jim Long with Schlegel & Associates, who's our civil engineer. Here a few months ago, we looked at this site and we said, hey, what's the best use that we could come up with? They had some product that they had done and built and were successful with, which is what we have presented here tonight. This flat over flat concept, which is 2 units per building, like what Matt had in his presentation. The infrastructure and the roadway, similar to the senior villas, is all private. So that's all will be owned and operated, by the owners, which will be us. The common areas will be owned and maintained by us as well. Again, like what's across the street there. The intent for these units are to be for lease, and we'll get into a little bit of that with Sean has a presentation that he brought tonight. The units will range in size, I think, from 12 to 1,500 square feet. So a little bit larger than what's across the street, probably more comparable to what's in the townhouses. Each of the units has their own garage, attached garage, and private entry. So again, similar to what the townhome living is up to the northeast of here. We had a neighborhood meeting last Tuesday or Wednesday. We hosted it out here in the neighborhood. Had a handful of residents attend that meeting. I think a handful of residents are here tonight, with some questions and concerns. And happy to answer whatever I can regarding the development. I'm going to let Sean go through his presentation, talk a little bit more about the units and the site plan.
Thank you, Tyler. This is Sean Flandemeyer. Address is 350 Southwest Longview Boulevard, Lee Summit, Missouri, 64082. Thanks for the introduction. This is a similar or same presentation that we had at the neighborhood meeting. You've covered a lot of it, Tyler, but I'm going to go through the slides because the pictures add more context. Some of these are a little redundant, but if you guys have questions along the way, let me know. We reviewed this project location. We did review the fact that the current zoning is C2 PUD and gives an idea what type of commercial zoning is currently present. And this is partially the reason we believe that our request for a rezoning would be more appropriate for that corner area and more of a fluid design for the neighborhood. So the proposed zoning residential R3 PUD site development, I don't want to be too redundant with these renderings, but hopefully this gives you guys, again, a good view of the site plan. I'm going to move down to more of the landscaping plan and cover again how the site will be maintained in the HOA. Matt covered the landscaping plan, the parking access and sidewalks. This is a good slide, just shows the pedestrian access to existing sidewalk network, the entrance, and then also reviews the spaces for parking at the bottom. Private parking is provided off alley, so the parking does not dominate the character development. I think that's one of the best parts about this neighborhood is it's tucking any guests or the residents behind there and keeping them off of Sycamore. Services to the community, really this is a request from the city. Again, reviews. If you look at the orange blocks, we'll start there. Notice it's two blocks per building. One is really where they're stored, and the second block closest to the curb indicates where the cans need to be placed on pickup day, and then reviews the requirements for trash truck access in the community mailbox location. Oh, went the wrong way there. Utilities, reviews the utility layout, water lines crossing Sycamore, sewers coming from the rear, and then the connection to the storm water sewer. The HOA services provided. The green areas indicate the areas of maintenance that will be taken care of by the HOA. Alleys and parking maintenance for snow removal are shown in blue. And then the common yards and areas mowing, again, shows green. And then the owner is responsible for all exterior maintenance for all units, along with the fact that you indicated the irrigation supporting the landscape. Development renders, which we've reviewed already, just showing the access to the location. There's been questions about the retaining wall back there. Part of it is to hold a little bit of dirt back plus screening, even though much of the landscape is there to provide a buffer zone between the single-family residential and what we're building here on the corner. This is my favorite view with the neighborhood's favorite skyline in the background, but it just gives you a little different direction. But again, I envision, we've been out here in Traditions for 5 years, and I do think it offers a great view as you leave the neighborhood versus what the other opportunities are currently. Floor plans, these are tough to see. So residence 1 is indicating the main level. This is a 2-bedroom, and with the living room in the front, 1 bath. Floor plans for the second floor, you can enter in from the garage in its own entrance, and from the front includes 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. Elevations of the home are indicated as Matt described, with the wood siding and also stone or masonry veneer face to add to the elevation. And that's the same presentation that we had for the community. So this is what we went through with them last week, and really open up for any questions that you might have.
Okay. Thank you very much.
For sure.
Appreciate that. Since this is a public hearing, I think what we will do is we will, if you all will try and make note of any questions and comments that come from our community, we're going to go ahead and invite them to speak, and then we will invite the commission to follow up with any questions that they might have for you as well. So I'm just going to go off of the list in the order that everyone signed up. And excuse me if I butcher some names, but the first one I believe is Rochelle Christensen. And if you will just come to the mic, make sure you state your name and address for the record.
So my name is Rochelle Christensen. My address is 702 Quincy Court. My backyard will butt up dead center to the back of this. I have some questions as well as a few concerns. I'm trying to find the need that Belton has for more rentals. The subdivision across the street from me is building 100 and something units. We are, in our subdivision, are building 120-ish something units that are all going to be rentals, along with the senior villas, which were phenomenal. Those are needed in Belton, but I can't make sense of these items. Mostly because they stated to us the price point for these rentals are going to be in the 2,000 above range a month. I'm not real sure how that's affordable housing for Belton when the median house income per the 2020 census is $65,000. The senior villas rent for about $1,100 a month, and we have an 1,800 square foot house that was listed for $2,495 a month that just got lowered a couple of $100, I think, last week. I can't see the need for that. Currently, our subdivision has properties deeded to 8 different LLCs. So we have homeowners, and then we have the HOA who owns the townhomes and the senior villas and some of those rental homes. But on top of that, there are additional LLCs who do not take care of their properties. We report those properties. They're difficult to find per the HOA, hard to find the owners. They're LLCs that I can't even track down. Some, dead-end me in Texas, some dead-end me in California. So there's a different standard here. The homeowners are held to a standard. The renters are held to a different standard, and they are not the same. Not the same. They were talking about this parking here. So this number, this weird cutout here, that's my actual property, which is where these parking spaces will be. So they're stating that there's going to be 27 parking spaces. There's going to be 12 units. So we're assuming that the average household only has 2 cars. I have 4. So where's the overflow parking going to go? If you turn in off of Mullen onto Sycamore, you're talking just several yards, and then you're going to have to turn into this. There's no other access point. This is it. This is all you've got. So if you drive further down Sycamore, just to where this map ends, is where you start getting into the townhomes. They can't even park because their overflow parking is so full, and these streets are so compacted that they have started parking up and down Sycamore, which is my assumption would happen in this case once there's no more room for them to go. I am a household of 3 with 4 cars. At one point, I had 6. Who knows how many these cars may have? They may have teenagers. It might be a family with 3 kids, 2 adults with driver's license, 2 kids with driver's license. That's 4, and that's just 1 unit. So that's hazardous. When you drive down Sycamore and you try to drive through the townhomes, you can't safely do that. They are parked on all sides of the roads. You can go there right now, and I guarantee you there's a car parked under a no parking sign. They even have an overflow lot always full. It's not safe. And it concerns me that we have one access and one exit, and that's the same entrance that the entire subdivision has to use. And then what happens if that's blocked? That worries me. The senior villas have their own access, which is very nice. So the parking is a really big issue for me. That and just the overall congestion of just that one entrance of how we all are going to go in and out. And this might be more community, I don't know what I did. I apologize. I'm not going to touch it. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. Oh, it went away. Okay. I wished it away. I'm sorry. We obviously live in an HOA, so we have amenities. We have a park, we have a pool. We're supposed to have walking trails. I don't know where they are. But they're already so overwhelmed. And then with all of these additional homes that are coming in that are not even for sale, they're all for rent. And I feel like are we wanting people to move to Belton and invest in a home in Belton, which is what I've done. I did it 18 years ago. Love the community. Love the growth. Love the growth. But this just feels like we're trying to take so much and cram it into such a small space that we've decided let's just stack them on top of each other. While aesthetically they are very pretty, they just don't make any sense for me. I think it's way too small of a space to put that much in there. I'm not sure how the trees, in my opinion, the trees are not adequate separation. I'm going to be staring at parking lots, garages, streetlights all hours of the night. I'm perfectly fine with it being zoned commercial, honestly. I'm perfectly fine with a business going there. They have operating hours. So it's not a 24/7 something. There's going to be off days, there's going to be off hours. I have no problem with it being zoned commercial personally. I'm speaking for myself. It didn't seem like there was a real concern in our community building about anything. So I hope that you guys will take some of these concerns when you make your decision. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Rochelle. So, all right. And not to reflect on anything, I just forgot to state before we started, I am going to ask everyone limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. So not that we had a problem there, but just forgot to mention that from my notes. Next would be Cheryl Standiford. Cheryl?
My name is Cheryl Standiford, and I live at 1507 Sycamore Drive, Unit D. I am in the senior villas. I have a couple of concerns. We're talking a potential, like this young lady just said, we have a potential of minimum 24 cars going to be accessing that area. It's a small area. Mullen Drive is not, or Mullen Road, as that's called there, is not a great road. I've seen school buses on the road. It's falling apart. And when you're adding more vehicles, I think some consideration needs to be given to upgrading the road, whether it's widening it, strengthening it, road sign, stoplight, I don't know what that is. But I think some consideration for the additional traffic that road is going to see. The road isn't anything like what it really looks like. If you live there, you would know that. My second concern is for the landscaping, and it is a fairly minor concern, but when you live in a senior villa and you expect a certain level of upkeep that I'm guessing I'm paying for in my rent, the irrigation system hasn't been working. We have landscaping die all the time. And there's a promise of it being repaired or replaced. Doesn't happen. So again, I believe it's something that I am paying for in the rent that I pay. And I just think we need to be considered a little bit more than just a senior villa and, oh, well, you know. Those are my two concerns. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Cheryl. All right, next would be Jason and Jennifer.
I'm Jason Dudgeon, 1603 Shane Lane. I live next to the pool that is one of the amenities that is completely overflowing. Like Rochelle said, it was brought up about her being perfectly fine with a commercial business being in that lot. When we had our community meeting last week, I believe that one of you all stated that one of the businesses that had approached you was a child care facility, which we live in a neighborhood with families. Families have children. We take our daughter all the way to Rayborn for daycare. What would a child care facility, what else would you all like to have there? When it comes to pulling into Mullen Road, I see a member of the fire department here. I know that they come in and out of our neighborhood all the time. They come right down Shane Lane multiple times a month sometimes for one of our neighbors. Just turning in there is tricky, I bet, with the large engine. And then you start adding extra cars parking down the street. I'm not sure what the ordinance is when it comes to parking, the width between vehicles, for the width of the road, for the fire department to go through, but that part probably should be considered when it comes to off-street parking or the lack thereof once you start moving all these families in. Because, like the lady who lives in the villa says, school buses. You have all of these construction vehicles coming in and out right now. They have, I heard the individuals in the back talking about the new access from Cambridge. Why are those construction vehicles not using the new access point? Why are they not coming in off of Mullen Road, temporary access to their construction sites? I have to go out every morning after getting off at the PD in Harrisonville and make sure that one of those construction vehicles actually stops and doesn't smash my 7-year-old daughter trying to get on our school bus, because they have a complete lack of consideration when it comes to, it's a neighborhood. You're going to stack 12 more families in a 2-acre lot. 1.18. I mean, my yard's 0.26 acres, and I ain't got enough room for my own kids. But I just, that's a horrible idea for that corner.
Thank you, Jason. Matt Christensen.
My points have been covered, so I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. A.B. Rojas.
Same here, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Mackenzie Husted.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm Mackenzie Husted. I live at 700 Quincy Court, Belton, Missouri, which is that very rectangular shaped one right behind this area. My concern is safety. You have cars pulling practically in my backyard, and you want to put some trees up to block that. For all the reasons they have listed, I'm very against it, but if this were to go through, I would request that we have at minimum a 6-foot fence or wall barrier between all of our yards in this new development, because it is a parking lot and someone can just walk into my backyard, because I am the only one without a fence there because I never planned to get one. And now that there is something there, I don't feel safe with just trees. And at night, the second level is going to be looking straight into my back porch in my master bedroom. So all those fun lights of their street lights as well as car lights will be coming in straight to the back of my house. I know we already get street lights from Mullen, but at least they continue on to their houses, and this would be constant in my backyard. I have huge picture windows, which I do have covers on them, but you can only do so much to stop a parking lot from being seen out the back of your house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Brittany Richardson. My points have been covered. Thank you, Brittany. Chastity. Rubletto. All right, thank you, Chastity. I appreciate you helping me out on that. Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley Duvall. I live at 704 Andy Court, and I think my biggest issue is the parking. My family actually does utilize the walking trails and the sidewalks. And so my son is regularly out on his Power Wheels, cruising the neighborhood. And when we get to the townhomes on those walking trails, all of the cars that have filled up the overflow are now parking alongside of the street. So for us, it comes a safety concern when he's on his Power Wheel that he can't necessarily see the traffic coming because there's cars that are blocking the vantage points. So I'm just afraid with this, there's 27 parking spots, and I don't even know how we get to 27 based off of the picture, but where are people going to park when family comes over or multiple people? I mean, when I was in college, we rented a townhome, each of us had our own vehicle. So while we say the city says 2.2 parking spots, we were taking up 4. So that's just my biggest concern is where people are gonna park, what the safety is for kids who are riding bikes and playing and being able to see oncoming traffic. And then I also just feel that that space is too small for 6 buildings. If you scaled it down, less buildings, not double deckers, I wouldn't have as much of a problem, but the fact that we're trying to cram that much into that small of a space is also one of my issues.
Thank you, Ashley. Neil Anderson? Nick, thank you. I knew I'd blow it eventually.
My handwriting's
Somebody.
horrible, it's all right.
Thank you, Nick.
Nick Anderson, 702 Emily Avenue. I guess I'm just gonna back up everything everybody else kind of said. I don't really have a problem necessarily with it being zoned residential, but I definitely have a problem with the amount that they're trying to cram in that space. And there is just absolutely, based on townhomes and things like that, there's absolutely no way people aren't gonna park on Sycamore Avenue in front of their houses because they'll be able to get out of their car and go right in the front of their house. Visitors, family, whoever else comes and visits, and that's just going to present a huge safety hazard. There are 0 streetlights right there as well, so if it's middle of the night and there's a car parked there and you turn into that road, people are gonna hit cars. There's just not enough parking for the amount of whatever. I know it meets ordinances and everything like that, but practical common sense, if you went and looked at the townhomes, would tell you there is absolutely not enough parking for the amount of people they plan to put there. So those are my concerns.
Thank you, Nick. Louis Ains.
Hi, everybody. I'm Louis Ains. I live in the by Building 6, next to Sycamore. I have a fence. I'd also, too, if anything does get put here, I'd like to be able to put a privacy fence up. That's the #1 concern with my wife because we're trying to have kids. You got 2-year-olds and 1-year-olds that live just the unit down, and then you have kids on 2 different plots at the bottom. All those are going to need some kind of protection from safety from 24 different families. Not that there's going to be bad people there, but just for our own privacy, we're homeowners. We'd like a little bit of that, security, I feel like, if we could at least work something out there. But did you guys say that the roads you are 20 feet wide? Is that what you were saying just a little bit ago? The coming in there?
I think that's what.
Okay, that's cool. So the average F-150 is 19.8 feet long. So even backing out of the ones with the longer driveways will be pretty tough with a 20-foot long, wide sidewalk, essentially is what that's going to be. And then anybody parking on the left side, building 1 and 2, those look like parking spaces. So even for them to get out of there would be near impossible. And I think you guys also mentioned that you're going to you want to shorten the width you have, or distance you have to be from your unit to the road. So that's already concerning to me, that you have to cram that much into that small of a space, that you gotta get leniency on city ordinances that say you can't be that close, that close. Is that right? I think that's what you were saying. So, I mean, this doesn't seem.
No, I could chime in on that. No,
Oh.
I didn't say that. It's just, what I try to communicate in the neighborhood meeting is that those spaces on the end where the driveway is, which Matt mentioned as well, those spaces wouldn't be counted as parking spaces that are coming off the unit 1 and 2. Oh, sorry about that.
Where it has the number 4 there in the bottom, those look like parking spaces to me.
That's true. What I was trying to clarify is for buildings 1 and 2, I wasn't asking for a variance, but I wanted to indicate that on building 1 and 2, you'll see that those two have short driveways or access to the garage. Those spaces aren't calculated into the garage count or the parking count for this community.
So where's the rest of the parking that you're saying is going to be there?
You have garage, driveway, and the additional parking spaces.
So, what's the average car is 14 feet. So you're saying it's 14 feet from the edge of the garage to where the little wide sidewalk begins?
Which
Do you
unit
have
you're
at least
speaking to?
that? So is this thing a laser pointer? Because I really want to use
Yeah.
a laser pointer. Does this work? How's it?
Or if you want to point to the screen, I can come up there and clarify.
I have these T-Rex arms.
So as I'm understanding the question and the answer, there are 4 parking spaces for buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6, but only 2 for buildings 1 and 2. Is that correct?
There's 8 for 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then only 4 for 1.
This can get confusing because we're adding, there's a garage space and a driveway space and then a public parking space. And what I'm trying to clarify based upon your comments is in the meeting, I didn't indicate we were asking for a variance. What I was trying to say is that on building 1 and 2, because they're so short, we do not count those into the parking calculation.
I don't. You can't technically, right? Because it's
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yep.
I mean, based off of construction, I'm sure you have to have a certain amount of length between the garage and the road for it to be considered parking.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's just to be the code. Okay, yeah. And then, so you don't have really any parking there, and then for them to back out of that and then pull out, it seems kind of impossible. I mean, I'm sure somebody would be like really good, pull awesome powers in there, but it just doesn't make any sense. And I absolutely agree with everybody. They mentioned that somebody offered them or made a gesture about putting a daycare in there, or we would love that. There's children all over in our neighborhood. We're a growing neighborhood. We don't personally as homeowners, don't like the fact that everything's going to be rentals. We want people invested in our community. I have lots of friends that their kids go here to Belton. They've lived here for multiple years on end. A lot of these, we've already noticed that some of the houses that are not being maintained in the neighborhood, they are not being, of course, they're not being mowed. The water's not running for when they put in their sod in the beginning of them, so they just kind of look like crap. And they're in and out in a year. Probably because the rent in these homes is so outrageous. Like, to buy the home, your house payment's $1,400. They're charging $2,400. It's absurd what the market's doing to people right now, but it's the world we live in. And this adding all these rentals is not helping out the American living man situation. This isn't going to help our community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. And Jenny?
My concerns have been addressed.
Have it? All right, thank you. All right, that is all that we had that had signed up asking to speak. So I'm going to ask, Director, did you have any comments before I go to the... to the,
Yeah, I did want to clarify that there is a setback reduction that is requested, as I mentioned in my presentation, to reduce the front setback from 25 or 30 to 20 feet, and on Long Mullen Road from 30 to 25 feet. And the reason for that is twofold. It does allow the front of the building with the front porches to be pushed up closer to the street. And then it does match the 20-foot setback that was previously approved elsewhere in the PUD for the fourplexes and the villas.
all right, thank you. And we'll give the developer, I asked you all to kind of take note. Would you like to address some of the questions and concerns that have been expressed to us?
Sure, I'd like to stand up, but if I could look at the questions, you guys tell me what you'd like. I think in the big picture, the one thing as a builder, which I'm building for the developer in this case, is that from a financial aspect on the rent, I can tell you that as a builder, we're building in other communities, and while this rent may seem high, I personally built some of these homes in this community. I've been incredibly surprised myself at the increase in costs. And I try to put myself in the homeowner's shoes, and perceptions would be that, yeah, builders are making a bunch of money and things are out of control, but the reality is that we do build several homes and I still get price increases, multiple each day. And the challenge is becoming that the prices of new homes, even the homes that we built in this community and the $1,400 a month mortgages that were mentioned in this meeting today, at a 5% down on even the same Greystone home that somebody in this meeting has right now, is turning to $3,300 a month. So nobody, myself included, and I am fortunate, but myself included would believe that over time there's the comment or the word being used is the missing middle. And I think the biggest benefit that I could portray, although I'm hearing out all these concerns, is that, like I said in the neighborhood meeting, while there are concerns in this neighborhood about a previous builder and developer, which is not our in this room, there were things that even disturbed me, because even though we built these homes for these people, it's still our homes in our community. And the reason that I'm partnering with Tyler on this project is because I do believe there's something that needs to be addressed with the sprinkler system in the retirement area. But I do believe that the developer, the HOA, we will take care of the property, it will be maintained, and it will look good, and that's represented in the retirement community. So when I look at the opportunity that's there, be it a daycare or be it these units, I believe that they are going to look good, and there are some things that need to be addressed in the community, but for the people that we're partnered with, I do believe this is going to be a good-looking project and maintained and taken care of well.
All right, thank you. And I will open it up to the council for questions. I did want to clarify a couple of things that I had made note of. And one was just to clarify, because the fire department was mentioned, have you looked at the plan? What are the alternatives, or what can be done if people are parking on Sycamore?
So the code says 20 feet roads for our fire apparatus, which they've met all of that wherever we need them to. The code doesn't address specifically the parking unless it's a commercial property. We probably could add some no parking signs to help alleviate some of that, especially in the fourplexes that are down the road a ways, and potentially here too, some signage. But the roads meet the requirement, so I don't have much to say about it because I'm held to whatever the standard the code says. And it's 20 foot, and that road that leads into this new addition that they're putting, it's short enough to not meet the to kick in the next requirement. If it was longer, it could kick in 26-foot roads, but it never did that because it wasn't long enough.
Okay. So you're not looking at, unless people are just parking on both sides, we're not really looking at an obstruction for the fire department then, from what it appears.
Every neighborhood in the city of Belton has people that park, when people come home, more cars. We end up with them all neighborhoods, and we manage to get through them. But apparatus is getting bigger every time we turn around, so that may change down the road. But as of now, it does meet the requirements. And in some places there, they do have no parking signs. I don't know why those weren't continued on one side of the road. They started at one point and then never finished going. So I don't know if that was a developer that put those in or if that was the city. But there's been a couple different people building in there. This property was owned by somebody before the Solis, so I don't know if that started with those or not.
Okay, thank you very much. Council.
I just have a clarifying question, I guess. On the agenda, it talks about just the rezoning. So the vote that's going forth today, we're just talking about rezoning this from a commercial property to a residential property. This actual plan, or the plat plan, is not up for vote. Is that correct?
No, it is. This plan is included with it as part of a PUD. So a vote on this includes the rezoning and this specific development plan.
It does state preliminary development plan in the agenda as a part of that, so it would be both.
Great. Just looking for the clarification, what specifically we're voting
Right.
for. The other thing that was mentioned was the Mullen expansion project and the reduction of the size of the lot.
So the Mullen Road additional right-of-way has already been accommodated on this plan. So there would not be any additional encroachment of Mullen Road. They've actually had access to the Mullen Road development plans and have incorporated that into these plans. You can see the median that's proposed in there that's not currently there. So that's already been taken into consideration with this project.
Commissioner.
The parking is a big concern to me. With you only got 15 spots besides the garages. You're leasing those places, and usually when you lease a building, we see it over on Kenneth. They don't park in the garages. And you talk about putting no parking signs up. That's what they did in Kenneth, when it got bad. So what happened? They all park in the yards. You go down Kenneth at those duplexes. There's no grass. It's all mud. People are parked there. There's 15 parking spots for that is not enough. I agree. That's pretty dense for that little lot. You can't even fit any more parking spots on there. I would think they've got to try to get more parking there. Because every one of those is going to have two cars minimum, or 3 or 4. So that's the way I feel. The parking, I drive by in Kenneth every day. It was nice. Thought we took care of it, put no parking signs on Kenneth because you couldn't get up and down the street. So now they just park all up and down in the yards. Front yards, backyards, everywhere. And that's what I feel like that's a little dense for that small lot.
Commissioner Bass.
I would expand on that. My bigger concern, yes, the parking and the cars in the yard and such. But on Kenneth, even when they had the no parking signs, we had children running between those cars that could not be seen. And it was a very scary situation. Yes. And then even when they put the no parking signs up, people still abuse that. And I think I'm hearing from some of these neighbors that's what's happening even in their own neighborhood. So, and I'm not saying there's not a solution. I'm just saying that's a big concern with that much traffic and so many families in that area. For me, I see it as a risk for some of these families.
Mayor, and I'll come to you next.
Whereas I agree with what they both just said about the parking, one of my questions is the entrance on Sycamore. How wide, do we know how wide that south lane is? Because here's what's going to happen is there is not enough parking in the back of that, as far as I'm concerned, because you got 7 parking spots, I assume, for guests. But what's going to happen in building 1 and 2, they're going to park over here in that number 4, so that's going to take those 4 out. So you got
2 parking spots left, 1 handicap and 2 regular. So people are gonna come up here and park on Sycamore. And to me, by looking at this drawing, that's narrower than 20 feet. So that's gonna encroach on public safety, getting access.
Commissioner.
Well, I had a question to the developer more about the units specifically. I haven't seen units like this that are flat over flat, is what you call them. What do you do in this situation for like storm shelter for the person that's on the top floor? I mean, or even the bottom. Is there a basement? Is there? What do you do?
There's not a basement. Can you hear me okay? Sorry about that. There's not a basement in these units. We meeting their code requirements or the municipal code requirements. And while there's no perfect answer, the recommendation would be to go to an interior bathroom.
Commissioner Vest.
I had a couple of questions. One, on the HOA, does the HOA, is that just going to be designated for these duplexes? Or does that HOA tie into the homes?
So there's one master HOA that covers the entire community.
The entire community?
Yes.
So,
Anything that would be developed in here, whether it's this project or others, would be under that HOA, that master HOA.
okay. So there's one pool and there's walking trails.
Correct.
That will be accessed by these tenants, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then another question I had, he mentioned you were going about maintenance provided. And then you said there's some exterior responsibility to the tenant. What did you mean by that?
To clarify, there's no exterior responsibility by the tenant. The developer and the HOA will maintain the exterior of these units, paint, upkeep.
Okay. I'm somewhat familiar with this format just because I lived in Lee Summit for a number of years, and in New Longview, this is a very popular, trendy thing with the alley, and these homes are going for a lot. I taught not too far from there and lived in the older part of Longview Farm. Had friends, and I've gone over there, but parking is an issue, no matter where you go. And I had been to a retirement party and everything for friends that lived in houses that looked just like this. We lived in Arbor Walk, which is on the corner of Ward and 150 for a short time. Very same similar situation. Lots of multifamily units, duplexes, townhouses, and homes with that alley and a small yard, and it's charming. It's just not very practical. I tend to agree that I'm not sure that Belton should go in the direction of multifamily. I feel like we are in desperate need for single-family homes. I think that benefits the community, and I think it benefits the school district. And we have lived here since 1972, on and off my parents have, and then I moved back about 10 years ago. So.
Commissioner Warren.
So Mike, can you go back to the slide with the pictures showing the commercial buildings? Who put this together?
This was the developer.
Okay. These are not coded to our city. I believe you have to have stucco front. I think we had this discussion last time with a certain tire place here in town, and I was trying to get it to where the guy could redo his building. And I remember them saying at the time that we had to have stucco front, we had to look presentable. So I just want to let, for the record, this is not depicting what would be allowed there. So, secondly, did someone actually come to you about daycare or?
Yeah, we had a group reach out probably in the last, I'm gonna say 12 to 18 months. The site wasn't large enough for them, based off of what the square footage that they needed for the building and the amount of parking. But that, yeah, it was a daycare use is what he was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a grand idea. I mean, it's, you know, you could probably find someone that, obviously there's a need for it. So, in my opinion, I think it'd be just fine leaving a commercial. I do think it's dense. Parking's an issue. I mean, all that good stuff. I don't know how you guys get the trucks through there. I mean, if there's people parking on the side. So I see a little bit of a issue with it, in my opinion. So.
Mayor.
Is the planned rent $2,400 a month? Is the planned rent $2,400 a month?
No, in the neighborhood meeting, we told everybody, you know, the units range in size from 12 to 1,500. You could expect leases that are from 1,600 to up to 2,000. So I wouldn't foresee rents in here above. No, I said 1,600 up to 2,000. There's houses in this neighborhood for rent.
Speak, please.
That's are probably start at 1,900 and go up to 2,400. Yeah.
Commissioner.
Do you have similar units here in anywhere in Cass County?
Similar to these exact floor plans? No, not in Cass County.
And I'd asked the director earlier, there is a development in Raymore. It's behind Sonic, and they have buildings or homes. I don't know if they're single family or if they are multi, but it looked almost identical to the plans. And that was my question to him was there any connection with that? Because the buildings, I will say this, they look nice. The buildings are very, present very well. A friend of ours lives close to there. We were walking by and they were impressed with the sleeping porch on the top deck, or on the top floor is what they were calling it. And so we were discussing those, and that's what got my attention. So, go ahead.
If I could address that, Chairman McPherson. We actually started that project with the Sieberts in that community. It had been probably 3 years ago. So we are also responsible for those units. In addition to the units that you're requesting, they're not in Cass County, but they have been built in downtown Blue Springs.
Okay. All right, thank you. Do we have Mayor?
You know, listening to everything and, you know, studying these designs and everything, it looks like a good product. I think it is just too much in 1.13 acres.
All right. So I think at this point, what I am going to do is close the public hearing, and then the commission can continue to discuss any further questions that we have. So we will close the public hearing, and any additional questions, comments from the commission. And I appreciate that comment, Mayor. One question I had, how long has that property sat without any interest in commercial zoning? Or, I mean, without any commercial interest in moving in there? Do we have any idea on that? Whoever, I'm not sure who would be best.
We've owned the property, I'm gonna guess, since 2016-ish.
Okay.
I believe the original development of Tradition started in 2008 or 9, I'm guessing.
I think it started in 2005.
2005, okay. So, and then you've got the neighborhood across the street on the west side. I think the front of it's all zone commercial as well. It was probably, my guess is probably started 2005 as well. And
okay. I was just
still
wondering.
available.
And I knew you'd mentioned earlier it'd been about 12 to 18 months since you had been contacted by that daycare. Didn't know if there had been any other interest at all in that. Okay. All right, thank you. ask Commission, any other questions, comments, either for the developer, for the director? Or do we have a motion? So the options that we have, the recommendation from staff was for approval, which is one of our options that we do have. We do have a couple of other alternatives available for us. We can we could entertain a motion to deny a rezoning and preliminary development plan for the Traditions 7th plat, or to
Mr.
continue
Chair?
the application for further information.
I would make a motion to deny rezoning and preliminary development plan for Traditions 7th plat as presented.
Thank you, Mayor.
I would second that.
And we think you have a second from Commissioner Bass. Any further final comments from Commission? May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Vest,
Aye.
Commissioner McDonough. Aye. Commissioner Monahan Bass,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Commissioner Warren. Aye. Chairman,
Aye.
and Mayor Larkey.
Aye.
And we also have Mr. Christie.
Sorry, Commissioner Christie. My bad.
All right, thank you. Do appreciate all of you that have come this evening and expressed your concerns. And I just wanted to personally thank you for the way that you have conducted business with the city this evening. And so thank you very much for that. So we are ready to move to the next item of business, and that would be for the election of officers of chairman and vice chairman for the coming year. And, yes, everyone else can go if you don't want to stick around, and you are definitely welcome to stay. But
Yep, I'm gonna just take that and you can exit out of here.
we'll give just a moment.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, they're dying to see the inner workings.
See how everything works. They can go home and watch it on
Right.
on the computer. So, all right. So moving ahead, then the election of officers for chairman and vice chairman for the coming year.
I'd like to make a motion to re-elect Mr. McPherson as chairman and Mayor Larkey as vice chairman.
I second that.
All right. Have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Could we have the roll call, please? It's a voice vote? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And one abstention. I abstain.
I guess I need to abstain too. I vote for him, but abstain for me.
And I vote for the mayor.
But abstain for me. If we can do it.
All
We
right.
Probably should separate that out so that don't happen again.
We both abstain. All right. Director, do you have anything for a report this evening?
Yep, just a few things to note. First of all, the City Council did formally approve for the adoption of the 2018 Building and Fire Codes at last Tuesday's meeting. Those will go in effect on January 1st, 2023. In the meantime, we will be accepting plans for review under either code, but any plans submitted for permit after December 31st will have to be reviewed under the 2018 codes and meet those requirements. The ordinances with the local amendments were posted on the city's website today, and we're working on some additional outreach to the development community to make them aware of those changes. We do not have any items for the October 17th Planning Commission, so our next meeting will be on Monday, November 7th. We do have a couple of items on that agenda. We do have a final development plan for the other place development, which is in the crossroads of Belton Shopping Center with Price Chopper. That'll be located behind the east of Arvis Bank, adjacent to Given Avenue. And then we also will have some UDC text amendments, including, as we discussed at the last meeting, the date changes for the Planning Commission to be able to start meetings on Tuesdays, starting in January.
All right, very good. Thank you, Director. And I did fail again. I'm failing all over the place tonight. But to welcome Mr. Warren back to the Planning Commission. RJ, glad to have you back. And
Can we vote on
so, but it was like you were just. It just seemed like you were part of it, and I didn't even think to say anything earlier. But glad to have RJ back on the Planning Commission with us. So that is all that we have for our agenda this evening. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.